it's like, I feel like we're getting into the realm of like trying to start like something new, instead of it like seeing the idea of just having dialogue and conversation as being sort of like a means to an end, but like actually having value in itself too. I think having dialogue and having like conversation and like learning how to do that, in a church context can almost be like a spiritual practice, like praying. And then to be able to like nurture that within churches so that it's like comes naturally and between churches, so it creates relationships, and then all of a sudden, like strong relationships will lead to, who knows, the sky's the limit. But it's like I have the tendency to shoot for the moon, and like you were saying, it takes time, but I think just like acknowledging that, just the power of like simple conversation about simple things. I like your idea of having like different topics or themes, where two churches and Wesley students could come together and just have conversations. But it could also be like about football, and it would still be extremely valuable for relationship building and everything else, so I just wanted to add that. Are we going back?
I think about the meals on Wednesday nights here, and the idea of like that's something that's already going on, and how can we communicate things like that between the three groups better, to create a setting for like what you're talking about, where people can eat together and have conversations like this around the table at dinner, and just talk about other things that aren't so intense, just kind of water cooler topics, because that does build relationships. And I'm sure that all of the three groups are doing things like that, that we could take advantage of opportunities. And another idea that came to mind was, I wonder why, and I've wondered this before, like, why on some Sunday morning hasn't everybody here gone over to Asbury? Like, why don't we like plan a Sunday where we skip having service here and everybody goes down the street? And that just seems like something that we should do sometime.
As I'm listening to all of you, since I'm not in this community, since I'm coming from the city of Boston and in a completely different just area, in a different school, and I'm really liking hearing what's happening here, because I'm thinking of it as this is great for this community, but I'm also seeing that it applies so well to where I am and what happens when people come together and have this spiritual practice that's nurtured, and how does that affect the work that we do within the community. So thank you.
I feel like Adam reminded me of my tendency to jump to action items and trying to hold on to the importance of the dialogue and the discussion. Of course, this leads me to another action item of how do we create that. So.
But you've talked earlier, Jen, about the distinctiveness of our Christian identity, and the power of worshiping with one another is significant. And we've shared services before. We've had, just this past year, Asbury and Mount Vernon had a joint Christmas Eve service that was wonderful. But I will say, though, I cannot recall as a community taking communion with brothers and sisters at Asbury. And communion is a big deal for us as United Methodists. And it is it's a converting ordinance saying communion's a big deal. And that's a powerful thing to share. It's and it speaks to our distinctiveness as Christian people. There's all kinds of secular models for building partnerships, I'm sure. We can find all manner of best practices out there. But that's something distinctive we get to claim that one. Communion as a means to building the body of Christ. Imagine that. Wow. That's again, more hope. A lot of hope there.
I really like your idea of just have like congregations take turns, like, we're not gonna have service, everybody go to this one. We need to have like a choir swap on Sunday, pastor swap on Sunday. I mean, experience different style of worship than you're used to. Get to know each other. Communion's important. Music's important for United Methodists. Food is definitely important for United Methodists. I mean, these are sacred stuff,
I have my the community that I come from, and I guess I always think back to them, and I think there are a lot of things that I could bring back to them. I mean, we have covenanted together to be in community and to eat together, pray together, and meet together and worship together. But I like the idea of incorporating conversation into that, and so that's something that I'm taking away.
I went to a Methodist church in Fort Worth and Denver, and they both had a communion service before the main service. And I think they both had multiple services, so it might have been between services. But anyway, it was before the one that I went to. And so doing maybe like a joint communion service between services or before one of them, like maybe something like that might be possible. The other thing that both of those churches did was a historical tour. And I think one did it every week and one did it once a month. And so after the service, visitors or new people or anyone could go on a historical tour. And so I think it would be interesting to do a historical tour of the two churches, where you do one here in White Dog Street and do one there. And including the Wesley part of the building here, and because the historical partnership too, I think, is part of the history of all three groups. So maybe that's, I think I had some other thought, but I don't remember what it was. But those are just kind of more ideas that come up.
I think that's a great observation, Jen. And there's so many students at Wesley who are not from the Washington area who are here without a church home, and what would make Asbury and Mount Vernon Place be the kind of hospitable places where those students would want to invest for 1, 2, or 3 years while they were in Washington. Why are students choosing to not do that now? I think are important questions to ask, and important questions to ask. And these conversations are not without risk, and I think that's why it's key. Your observation that these kinds of things take time is so important. I mean, it's the relationship building does not happen overnight, and it's when things are rushed, when perhaps they're top-down driven. I mean, that's when you have a joint service and no one from Mount Vernon comes, and partnerships are set back rather than move forward. And so these kinds of relationships do absolutely take time. And if they start with the relationship before they get to the block party, you don't have to worry about no one from no one from Mount Vernon will show. You don't have to. That question gets resolved in the relationship. And so I think that's very good counsel. That the church is not known for its speed. No, not at all.